Imagine this. Angel Reese, one of the WNBA's most polarizing young stars, walking into Gainbridge Fieldhouse wearing Indiana Fever colors. Yes, the same Angel Reese who's been locked in a public rivalry with Caitlin Clark could soon be her teammate. Shocking? Maybe. But the rumors swirling right now say it's not impossible. And it could completely flip the balance of power in the league. Picture this. Gainbridge Fieldhouse is sold out, the crowd roaring as Caitlin Clark dribbles past half court. But this time, she isn't staring down Angel Reese on the other side. She's tossing her a perfect no-look pass. Angel grabs it, powers through contact, and finishes strong at the rim. The same rivalry that fueled headlines could suddenly become the WNBA's newest super team story. Just months ago, Reese and Clark were battling in one of the most talked-about rivalries in women's basketball. Clark's deep logo threes, Reese's swagger and grit in the paint. Social media went wild every time they faced off. But the Chicago Sky's relationship with Reese is reportedly falling apart, and insiders are saying a blockbuster trade could change everything, with Indiana quietly emerging as one of the most intriguing possible landing spots. If this move happens, it's not just a trade, it's a seismic shift. It would give the Fever one of the most exciting young cores the league has ever seen. Caitlin Clark, Kamilla Cardoso, Aliyah Boston, and Angel Reese. And it might finally end the long-standing narrative that Clark and Reese are destined to be rivals forever. So how did we even get here? Why is Chicago suddenly in a position where trading their star rookie feels inevitable? And how could Indiana, yes, the same team Clark is trying to lead back to championship relevance, pull this off? Let's break it all down. It started with hope when the Chicago Sky drafted Angel Reese. Fans thought they were watching a franchise turn the corner, a gritty, marketable forward with a college championship pedigree and a fearless edge. But behind the scenes, things reportedly began to sour quickly. Chicago has struggled to create a winning culture since Candace Parker's departure. There have been coaching changes, roster instability, and an ongoing fight to stay competitive. Reese was asked to carry too much, too soon, and it showed. Add in public tension, subtle social media likes, cryptic posts, and whispers of frustration with team direction, and the cracks widened. Now, analysts close to the league believe the relationship may be irreparable. Bleacher reports trade scenarios, says the Sky are hoping to repair things, but Reese is unlikely to show up for training camp next season if nothing changes. The expectation? Chicago will keep trying to fix it, but eventually be forced to move her by the start of next year's regular season if a deal that makes sense appears. Let's be honest. Just a year ago, nobody would have imagined Angel Reese in a Fever uniform. Indiana was still rebuilding. Caitlin Clark was a rookie finding her way, and the franchise was fighting simply to stay relevant. But then Clark arrived and everything changed overnight. Caitlin didn't just bring highlight reels. She brought attention, money, and power. The Fever went from overlooked to must-watch. TV ratings exploded, ticket sales soared, and suddenly Indiana became a place where free agents and stars actually want to play. Combine that with the arrival of Kamilla Cardoso and the steady dominance of Aliyah Boston, and you've got one of the most promising young cores in the entire WNBA. Now picture adding Angel Reese, a relentless rebounder and defensive force, to that group. You're talking about a front court that could bully every team in the league while Caitlin rains down logo threes and threads impossible passes. A lineup built for primetime TV and playoff basketball. And make no mistake, this isn't just about basketball. The Caitlin Clark effect has changed the Fever's leverage in trades. Indiana suddenly has assets, talented young players, draft picks, and a marketable superstar who can help lure other big names. And because of Clark's drawing power, the Fever know that every splashy move they make gets magnified. Adding Angel Reese wouldn't just strengthen the roster, it would send shockwaves through the league and dominate every sports headline for weeks. Here's where things get fascinating. The Indiana Fever are no longer the desperate rebuilding team with nothing to give. They actually have the kind of assets that make rival GMs pick up the phone. First, draft capital. Indiana has built smartly over the past few seasons and still controls some valuable picks. If Chicago wants a clean restart without Reese, the Fever could offer a future first-rounder. And with Caitlin Clark already turning Indiana into a playoff threat, That pick might look less risky than one from a struggling team. Second, young talent. Beyond Clark and Boston, the Fever have intriguing prospects, wings and guards who could become starters elsewhere. Someone like Lexi Hall or Grace Berger could be the centerpiece of a package, sweetened with a future pick. And if Chicago wants size, Indiana still has depth at forward that could be flipped. But here's the real twist. The Caitlin Clark factor changes how Indiana thinks about risk. A franchise that once played it safe might now gamble for stardom because Clark gives them instant relevance. Pairing her with Reese, another polarizing, marketable name, could supercharge TV deals, ticket sales, and merchandise. In other words, Indiana might be willing to pay more than expected because the return is league-altering buzz plus real on-court dominance. Imagine the Fever front office thinking, we're already the most talked-about team in the league thanks to Caitlin. Why not go all in and become unstoppable? That's the calculus that could push Indiana to outbid other suitors. Think about the Fever's core for a second. Caitlin Clark, the league's new offensive engine with limitless shooting range and court vision that turns broken plays into highlights. Kamilla Cardoso, a 6'7" tower in the paint with soft hands, rim protection, and championship pedigree. Aliyah Boston, the reigning Rookie of the Year, strong enough to hold her ground against any veteran big. Now drop Angel Reese into that mix. Reese is a rebounding machine who thrives in chaos. She chases every loose ball, punishes teams on the offensive glass, and forces extra possessions that can break an opponent's spirit. But more than that, she's a physical defender who doesn't back down. With her and Cardoso inside, the Fever could dominate the paint every night, swallowing up rebounds and making life miserable for anyone trying to drive. And then there's the chemistry potential with Caitlin. Imagine Clark running pick and roll with Reese, then whipping a pass to Boston when defenses collapse. Imagine Reese setting brutal screens to free Caitlin for deep threes, or grabbing offensive boards and kicking it back out to Clark for dagger second-chance shots. It's not just about skill, it's about identity. The Fever could instantly become the league's most feared and talked about team. Flashy and fast when Caitlin is running the show, but brutally tough and physical inside with Reese and Cardoso. The combination of highlight reel threes and relentless paint dominance could be must-see TV every single night. And let's be real, the narrative writes itself. Former rivals turned unstoppable teammates. The internet would go into meltdown mode. ESPN would feature every game. Tickets, sold out, jerseys, flying off shelves. This isn't just a basketball fit, it's a marketing goldmine. As perfect as this all sounds for Indiana, there's a reason this trade hasn't happened yet, and why it might still hit a wall. First, let's talk about Chicago's pride. The Sky invested heavily in Angel Reese as a cornerstone of their rebuild. She's young, marketable, and already one of the league's most recognizable names. Trading her so soon, especially to a division rival that's suddenly red hot, could feel like waving a white flag. GMs hate that idea of watching a player they gave up on turn into a superstar somewhere else. Then there's value. Chicago knows what Reese represents, and they don't want to be fleeced. Bleacher Report threw out trade ideas involving late first-round picks. And role players, deals like Naz Hillman plus 13th pick or Kate Martin plus 8th pick just don't cut it. Chicago wants, and probably needs, a premium young player or a high lottery pick to even think about moving Reese. Another factor, hope. Despite all the tension, Chicago might still believe they can patch things up. They've reportedly tried to mend the relationship and might hold out hope that Reese shows up to training camp, recommits, and leads the team. That hope could make them wait too long and risk losing leverage if things blow up publicly. And of course, there's the fear of fueling a rival. If Chicago trades Reese to Indiana, they're basically handing Caitlin Clark the perfect running mate. Every Fever Sky game would become a painful reminder. Do the Sky really want to be the team that helped create the next WNBA dynasty? That hesitation could make them dig in their heels and demand a king's ransom. In other words, the Fever have the assets, the star power, and the momentum. But Chicago's ego, market concerns, and fear of regret might make this deal one of the trickiest blockbuster moves in years. Of course, the Fever aren't the only ones eyeing Angel Reese. Around the league, there's a quiet sense that if Chicago really opens the door, the bidding war could get. That's where Indiana has an advantage. They have picks, they have intriguing prospects, and they have the motivation to make a splash. But if they hesitate, one of these other teams could swoop in with a surprise blockbuster. Let's not sugarcoat it. If Angel Reese ends up in Indiana next to Caitlin Clark, the entire WNBA landscape changes overnight. First, the media firestorm would be unlike anything the league has ever seen. ESPN would break into live coverage. Sports talk shows would spend days debating how two of the fiercest young rivals are now teammates. Social media? Total meltdown. TikTok edits of their college battles would flip to hype videos of them hugging at mid-court. Twitter, or X, would turn into a 24/7 fever dream of memes, takes, and endless arguments about whose team is it now? Clark's or Reese's? Second, the ticket sales would skyrocket. The Fever already sell out arenas on the road because of Caitlin Clark. Add Reese, one of the most polarizing and marketable players in the game, and every stop becomes an event. Home games at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, instant sellouts, jersey sales through the roof. Clark Reese Fever jerseys would become the must-have item. Third, the on-court product would become appointment viewing. Rivalries with the Chicago Sky would be nuclear. Imagine Reese returning to her old team with Caitlin feeding her alley-oops. Games against Aja Wilson and the Aces? Instant ratings gold. The WNBA Finals? Could feel inevitable. And then there's the cultural impact. Clark and Reese have already brought new fans into the league, but as rivals. Together, they could create a new era of women's basketball where talent, drama, and superstar energy collide. Think Bird and Magic, but on the same side. For the league office, it's a dream. One team that's a guaranteed national headline every night, bringing in sponsors, advertisers, and casual fans who've never watched before. And for Indiana, it's the moment they go from rebuilding to true contender almost instantly. As thrilling as the idea is, let's be real. Pairing Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese wouldn't be without fireworks. These are two of the most talked about, competitive, and strong-willed young stars in the sport, and both are used to being the face of their team. Locker room dynamics would be the first test. Caitlin's game is built on pace, spacing, and the freedom to create. Angel thrives in the paint, wants touches, and plays with a physical edge that can sometimes rub opponents and teammates the wrong way. Could they find a balance where Caitlin keeps her offensive rhythm while Angel gets the interior touches she craves? Then there's ego management. Neither player is shy about expressing themselves. Clark feeds off attention, but stays locked in. Reese is unapologetic, fiery, and has leaned into her villain role at times. Put them together and the Fever coaching staff would need to be masterful in shaping a shared identity where both feel valued and empowered without stepping on each other's brand. On the court, the fit can work beautifully, but only if spacing and roles are clear. Reese doesn't stretch the floor yet, and Indiana already has two interior threats in Aliyah Boston and Kamilla Cardoso. Could the Fever afford to play three paint-oriented bigs at once? Or would Reese need to expand her mid-range game to thrive alongside Boston and Cardoso? And finally, the media storm could cut both ways. The same cameras that hype their partnership would dissect every bad game, every side-eye, every heated timeout. One awkward moment could trend for days and spark trouble in paradise headlines. Still, great teams often find a way. Chemistry questions follow every super team before the talent takes over. And if Clark and Reese commit to winning, their shared hunger to prove doubters wrong could turn potential friction into unstoppable fuel. For the Indiana Fever, they go from fun young upstart to instant contender. The timeline accelerates overnight. Instead of slowly building around Caitlin Clark, Aliyah Boston, and Kamilla Cardoso, the Fever would be in win-now mode, chasing rings while their core is still on rookie-scale deals. That means free agents will look at Indiana and see a real chance to win and play with stars who draw massive attention. Suddenly, the Fever could become the WNBA's version of the Warriors, a young dynasty with star power and national appeal. It also gives Caitlin Clark something priceless: support. Instead of shouldering every storyline and every double team, she'd share the spotlight with Reese, a player who thrives on pressure and can take over physically when games get messy. For a franchise that's struggled to build stability, adding another young star creates a foundation that could last a decade. For the Chicago Sky, trading Reese, their highest-profile rookie, since the Parker era, would hurt in the short term. It would feel like admitting failure. But if they play it smart, the return could set up a faster, cleaner rebuild. A package built around a premium young talent, like a Sonia Citron type, plus lottery picks could give Chicago the flexibility to retool around Kamilla Cardoso, who's emerging as a future franchise big. The risk? If they settle for a weak deal, like a late first rounder and a role player, they could be stuck in mediocrity for years while watching Reese and Clark light up highlight reels together. That's the nightmare scenario that Mick Talks Hoops warns about. Chicago's front office has to think long-term, swallow its pride, and demand a true franchise cornerstone in return. Either way, this trade wouldn't just move players. It would redraw the league's power map. Indiana could become the team everyone's chasing, while Chicago either smartly resets or digs itself into a deeper hole. So here we are, staring at a rumor that could flip the WNBA on its head. Angel Reese, the fierce rebounder, the unapologetic competitor, the woman who stared down Caitlin Clark on the biggest stages, could soon be wearing fever yellow and navy. For Indiana, it's the ultimate power move, turning a headline rivalry into a super team nucleus with Clark, Boston, Cardoso, and Reese. For Chicago, it's a crossroads moment. Cling to pride and risk losing everything, or cash in now and rebuild around a new core. One thing's certain, this isn't just about trades and draft picks. This is about legacy, about reshaping the league, driving record-breaking crowds, and creating matchups that make women's basketball appointment viewing on a national stage. And now the ball is in Chicago's court. Do they double down and hope Reese comes back? Or do they pull the trigger and risk creating the WNBA's next dynasty in Indiana? As fans, we can only imagine. Clark finding Reese on a fast break, the two celebrating at half court while cameras flash. The Fever becoming the team everyone loves or loves to hate. Your turn, would you want to see Angel Reese team up with Caitlin Clark in Indiana? Or should the Fever stay patient and keep building slowly? Drop your thoughts below. This trade rumor could be the start of something historic. If you're as obsessed with this WNBA drama as we are, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because the second this story breaks, you'll want to be the first to know. And trust me, if this trade happens, we're going live the moment it's official.